Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Fab Mancini, and I'm super excited to be with you because we know that it's important for us to realize that these master classes that we do is for your sake, is for the sake of allowing you to be able to have the opportunity to be healthier, to have the opportunity not to become a statistic like so many people out there, to have the opportunity to live your life to the fullest. And I have an individual that is a dear friend that actually does all of that. And that's Dr. Richard Drucker. Richard, it's so great to see you.
Thanks, Fab. Always great to be here. And thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I was so excited to have you because, you and I have known each other for over 25 years. I've been a customer of yours with Intromax and Drucker Labs for many years. You have been a pioneer in the world of carbon bond technology. You have taught so many doctors, and now you're the leader of the Naturopath Association as its president. And one of the things that I've always admired about you is that you actually live your message. And that's one of the things that I love the most because at the end of the day, I believe that the greatest communicators in the world are the ones that live their message. So let's
Ab-
just
Yes.
basically briefly tell me a little bit about this carbon bond technology, and I know we're going to unpack it so people can understand how incredible this really is. But tell me a little bit about your journey towards becoming a doctor and actually identifying this carbon bond technology that so many of us have benefited from for over the years.
Well, that's fantastic. It's been a life's journey, Fab. I have spent my life really trying to create a very unique technology. And this technology, we are bonding living carbon, which is what we're made up of, to minerals, and then those minerals and nutrients. So what we're trying to do is create the perfect tissue match for the body so that uptake can be instantaneous at the cellular level, and that the body can begin to really utilize the nutrient at the cellular level, which is something that I think we're all sort of on a journey to try to do, is to try to figure out, well, we're taking all these different nutrients. And I've seen, look, everything from people taking handfuls of packages of nutrients, uh, people walking around taking 20, 30, 40 pills or capsules in a day. And then they wonder, but at the end of the day, they don't feel any better, Fab. So they're trying, and there's some degree of change, but it isn't a significant amount of change. And if they're looking for something specific to change in their life, they're trying to always, the concept has always been, let's just take more. More is better. And more sometimes can be better. But unfortunately, as you and I both know, if they are not attached to carbon, it is a very significant challenge for the body to be able to utilize that nutrient at the cellular level. So, unfortunately, people have been on a journey to figure out what's the best way to get carbon-based organic nutrients, and we've been asked this for decades. And it really just goes back to the food supply, brother. It just, the food supply has been void of critical organic carbon-based nutrients, and because our bodies are made up of carbon, we are about 18% carbon. The body has a definitive understanding and can utilize carbon very uniquely to process nutrients. So people are on this journey to get healthy, and we see this, week in and week out. I'm a naturopath and a PhD, and we I do a lot of research. And what has happened over actually a long period of time, is that the community in general has been educated, sort of, I hate to use the word incorrectly, but has been educated, I'd like to say unknowingly, that synthetic chemical nutrients are somehow as good or better than things that are carbon based. And Fab, you know, carbon-based nutrients are the things that we are ultimately seeking and searching for, but yet we've never known that they're really out there. And so our technology, called carbon bond technology, is a culmination of 30 years of research and development, whereby we are actually literally attaching living carbon. We are made up of carbon based materials, things like methyls, aromatic protonates, heterocyclics, carbonyls, carboxyls, quinones, ketone, ketene like carbonyls. But our bodies are very systematically, very carbon based bodies. Our cells, our membranes, our cellular membranes, our infrastructure, our biophysiologic infrastructure. This is all based around carbon. So Fab, I've spent the last 30 years developing this technology to stop the confusion and to give people the opportunity for the first time in some people's lives to actually ingest nutrients and minerals that are literally bonded to living carbon, the same living material that they're made up of. And that in and of itself has been my journey. And it has been a long one, but the results, Fab, are somewhat miraculous.
Well, I feel privileged because as I was learning about nutrition, it was around the same time that I met you. And having the ability to be ahead of my time, to understand the carbon component of it. But for those of the that are listening, and what I love is the fact that I've been to your offices, I've been to your labs, I've seen the evolution over the years and the expansion since you have 30 years. One of the things that I love the most is that you have thousands of doctors that are actually ordering every single week from you to share that with their patients because they see the clinical impact that
Yeah.
this bonded technology has. But then recently, you just released your book at your National Association meeting, which I was so proud of you because when I read your book, Carbon Cure, I mean, I just loved it because in this book, you really explain in very simple terms the understanding. And that's what I want to unpack a little bit. So, for individuals that perhaps have never heard about carbon bond technology, what exactly is the main difference that when you attach carbon into your minerals and ingredients, and I mean, you have over 400 ingredients and minerals within a shot. And that's one of the things that I still don't know how in the world you were able to create that. But let's say, what is the main difference between a carbon bonded solution like yours, an Intramax, and all of the solutions that you have, and a regular synthetic, and what is the mechanism of action? What is the body going through? And why is it that the absorption of this seems to be much faster and, more importantly, more clinically relevant when the patients or the individuals actually take these products?
Interesting. Wow. Great discussion. So basically, traditional supplements, Fab, they do often reach the bloodstream, but they unfortunately don't cross necessarily into the cell or into the cell membrane where they need to be. So carbon bond technology solves kind of this missing communication step between nutrients and, say, the cell or the cell wall itself. So without carbon, for example, there is no communication between minerals and cells. There is very low, if no, nutrient absorption, and very low, if no, cellular repair. So it's in a sense the forgotten conductor in the orchestra of, say, health. And what does all that mean? It's just that, look, nutrients, they can circulate in the blood, but never make it into the cells where they're needed, where they're absolutely critically needed. In fact, over time, inorganic synthetic nutrients can accumulate in our bodies and have a long-term toxic effect. So what I mean by that is that nutrients that are made up of carbon or have the backbone or the basis around carbon are very readily and easily seen at the cellular level by the body. Whereas nutrients that sort of look like carbon, nutrients that have some of the attributes of carbon but aren't carbon, are sort of, in a sense, tricking our cells or tricking our bodies into thinking that it's the real, sort of the real thing that the body can utilize. And unfortunately, Fab, the body can't utilize things that are not carbon based in the same capacity. So at the cellular level, carbon bond technology, which we call around here CBT, is designed to solve a very specific and well sort of kind of a documented problem that most traditional supplements do not adequately address. And that nutrients may be ingested, but they are not reliably transported into the cells where they can actually be used. And many nutrients are even damaged or rendered inactive before they ever get there. So, you know, I don't want to go too deep into the cellular core
Yeah.
problem, but Fab, cell membranes, as we know, are very selective, and every human cell is wrapped in a cellular membrane. So cellular membranes readily allow soluble carbon-based substances to pass inside the cellular membrane, whereas they actively resist inert synthetic chemical nutrients or synthetic chemical substances or things that we've been told are good for us, but they are synthesized in a lab. Those nutrients that are synthesized in a lab are, in a sense, insoluble, and they're made up of something called carbonate, not carbon. So there's a big difference, and we should differentiate between things that are made up of carbonate and things that are made up of carbon. Synthetic chemical nutrients, we call them, for lack of a better word, synthetic chemical nutrients, but they're called SCNs, and they are pretty readily everywhere. I mean, Fab, they're in every major whole food, every major nutritional supplement store in the United States. And these are nutrients that we are taught are considered grass. And I guess everybody may or may not know what the word grass means. So we'll just simply define that. It is generally recognized as safe. And they really are very large molecules, which have a very large or heavy molecular weight. And, their molecular size and weight mimic and look like, in a sense, a real nutrient, but they're much larger and heavier. So they're made up of this stuff that's called carbonate, and carbonate are synthetic chemicals. So things that are made up of your body and your tissue and your bloodstream, those things are based around carbon. Carbon and carbonate are two very, very, very different things. So what happens is most traditional supplements deliver nutrients in some sort of ionic or salt form that require sort of an active transport into the bloodstream in order to actually function and work. So what happens is they start competing for absorption. So what happens when they start competing for absorption? Well, they're easily excreted and they're poorly utilized at the cellular level. So what happens as a result? Yeah, blood levels may rise temporarily, but basically intracellular nutrient sufficiency remains low. So now the patient is actually starving for nutrition, even though they've just taken a handful of synthetic chemical nutrients. So basically what I'm saying is traditional supplements rely on sort of a breakdown to reassembly process where tablets, capsules, and even many liquids depend on digestion, meaning the acids and the enzymes in your digestive tract. They really rely on disassociation of nutrients. They're passive. They're transporter dependent absorption type concepts. And the cellular uptake is very inefficient, and minerals then bind to antagonists, and vitamins oxidize, and nutrients become precipitated or excreted. So it's a high intake, low cellular delivery, and that's
Well,
very
one of
unique.
the, yeah, and one of the things that for me, as I watched this evolution, when I was president of Parker, I never forget. We used to have, Intromax, and we used to do little samples for the students. And one of the things that people would say, and the students would say, is that, man, I feel the difference immediately. Whether it's,
Yeah.
because you have so many nutrients and minerals and all in this shot. So let's talk a little bit, because if I'm understanding you correctly, just to recap, the fact that when you have a carbon bonded nutrient, then it has the ability to be recognized by the body much easier. Therefore, the absorption component into that intracellular level is much greater, instead of having to compete or have the body try to fight it off because it doesn't recognize it as much. Um, so I know you mentioned, I noticed that one of the mechanisms of actions is that you created a liquid rather than what many of the other entities out there have been doing, capsules for the most part. You do some
Yeah.
tablets out there. And
Yeah.
also, let's talk a little bit about that absorption component. Why is it that so many of us that are doctors that have been giving it to our patients and sharing it with our patients that have seen incredible results? Uh, why is it that that absorption is so much greater, where even the patients say, hey, I felt that as soon as I started taking it, when many times the reason why many of our patients do not continue to take something after the first month, second month, it's because they don't see any change. So therefore they say, I don't really know whether this is helping me or not. So even though they bought 3 months supply, they maybe take only half a month or even one full month, but never take it again. So why did you select liquid? And why is
Sure.
it that this mechanism,
Yeah.
what does it do exactly that increases that absorption rate so well?
Fantastic. Great. People are, this is a common question that we receive even in our office here today is, can you guys put this into a capsule? And yes, and we are actually potentially working on that, but that's a different subject. The idea here being that it's liquid based is that things that are generally in a liquid form are generally less inflammatory, perhaps pass through the epithelium a little easier. And they are, in a sense, where they can be absorbed at the cellular level a little easier. But understand, there's a big difference between carbon-based liquids or carbon-based liquid compounds and things that are carbonate-based liquid compounds. So we want to just differentiate right away that carbon bond technology or things that are carbon based are doing really two things that for the body. I'll say both instantaneously and simultaneously. The first of them is that it is an amazing carrier compound. The CBT that is made up of carbon, and since carbon is made up of the same living material that the human tissue is made up of, it can pass through the epithelium and into the bloodstream. In this case, and in our case, in under 18 seconds. That's the first thing. So it is a very powerful, very sophisticated, but also very natural based delivery system. And then the second thing that it's doing, and this is probably as interesting to the listeners as anything else that we've discussed, is that the second thing is that it is literally attaching itself, the carbon has a very high affinity for things that are inert. So things that have accumulated in our bodies, you, me, and the whole world's bodies over a long period of time is due to exposure or things that we have eaten or breathed in or put on our skin, but things that our bodies can't process. Things that our bodies can't process, yes, we can release a very small amount of it, but we know medically and scientifically, Fab, that most of that is unfortunately retained by the body at the cellular level. So what happens here is that carbon starts to attach itself, polymerize, if I could use that word, attach itself, bond to things that are inert or things that have built up over a long period of time in our bodies and in our cells, and things that are accumulating over weeks, months, and years that down the road in 6 months, down the road in 3 years, we wake up and we're just like, oh my gosh, we feel horrible. And it could be an autoimmune phenomenon that has developed. It could be just any kind of an immune aberrance. God forbid it's worse than that, and you use the C word. But these kinds of diseases, whether it's rheumatoid arthritis, whether it's chronic fatigue, immune dysfunction, CFIDs, or MCAS, which is a mast cell activation. And there's so much happening because of all of our exposure. The carbon has an enormous, gorgeous, beautiful, loving affinity for things that are inert. So what does it do? The first thing is it's carrying the nutrient into the cell at a very rapid rate. What's left over, Fab, isn't just excreted. Now the body gets to go into phase two. And what does it do? It says, hey, I'm going to go after what has accumulated in extracellular space, interstitial fluid, and fatty tissue, and I'm going to bond to it, and I'm going to attach to it. And as I bond and attach to it, what am I doing? I'm converting it into a carbon-based polymer. If it's so long as it is now a carbon-based polymer, Fab, the body can literally see it for the first time, recognize it for the first time, and ultimately release it. So no longer does the body have to hold on to and store things that have accumulated in our cells. The body now has the mechanism and the technology to actually release it for the very first time. So those are the two most
Wow.
powerful, most gifted things that I know that I could give to a patient that walks into my office.
It's so many benefits because today we talk a little bit about, and this administration has been very proactive about the toxicity that we currently have in our bodies and
Mm.
how important it is to detoxify that at a cellular level and to realize that not only are you getting the benefits of those amazing ingredients, but the fact that the cell now has the ability to release, to detox. Um, you created three primarily products, and I want you to briefly just explain why three and what
Sure.
each component. You have Intramax, which Intramin and IntraKids. So tell me a little bit about what the purpose of each one of these products is, and why is it that you ended up with three, and what was the purpose behind it? Because you're very intentional in everything you do. So I knew that there had to be a much bigger reason why three instead of just having one product.
Well, okay. It really is a great question. And we looked for years for what would be the ideal delivery. And we thought, well, we could divide this into 20 different products. We could put it into, every kind of an immune product. We can create so many different things, greens and all these different things. And then I thought about it, and I really just decided, Fab, that the concept was to give the average person or more than the average person everything that they need, everything. And I mean the kitchen sink. I mean, literally.
Over 400 ingredients. I never even think close to even 10, and now you got 400.
But the key there, right, is that we ultimately want it to be synergistic. Like we
Yeah.
want it to be balanced.
Yeah.
You can throw 400 things into a vat, and Lord knows what you come out with.
Yeah.
What we've done is we have taken it, we have been an excruciating process because I wanted to create, in a sense, and please forgive me for using the word perfect. I know there's nothing really perfect in this world. I wanted to get as close to perfection as I possibly could. And the way to do that was, number one, to figure out how to bond carbon to minerals. Then that product became something known today as Intramin. Intramin is the carbon molecular structures, the CBT, which has been bonded, attached, and polymerized to over 40 different organically bound minerals. So think of it like, how would I explain this? Intramin is like a catalyst. Intramin is an activator.
Yeah.
Intramin is like an accelerator. So in a sense, you could think of Intramin in a sense like lighter fluid.
Yeah.
The more lighter fluid you pour on the wood, when you drop the match on, the greater the flame.
Yeah.
So the more Intramin we take, the greater whatever's with it is
Yeah.
being absorbed into the bloodstream. So Intramin becomes a very powerful delivery system, activator, catalyst, accelerator. Intramin is the backbone of every cell in our bodies. Without organically bound minerals, our bodies cannot produce adenosine triphosphate. Our bodies cannot heal cellularly. Our bodies cannot regenerate with healthy cells. Our bodies can, what I mean by adenosine triphosphate, by the way, is the actual production of energy itself through the metabolic pathways. And Intramin creates Fab, it literally creates that spark. It creates the spark inside the cell. It acts as a internal sort of spark plug.
Yeah.
It cellularly activates the cell.
It just enhances the opportunity. But I also saw that as a parent, you did something that I don't see a lot of companies really do, and that is to focus on the health of our children. We hear that the administration is talking about how so many of our children are having chronic disease and they're sick, not only with obesity and overweightness and prediabetes and diabetes and
Sure.
many others, but you created Intra Kids. And I remember
Yeah.
giving that to my kids when they were little. And tell me a little bit about why did you create a product just for the children to ensure that they have the opportunity to be healthy and prevent many of these conditions that we get as an adult?
Well, because for one thing, we're setting the stage, right, for later in life. As like Intramax, with over 400 different organically bound nutrients, all synergistically balanced, IntraKid is the most rapidly absorbed nutrient supplement loaded with carbon for children who are growing from the ages of 4, into their lower teens.
Yeah.
And the design there is on attention. The design there is on focus, on memory. The design there is on growth. Children need certain nutrients and synergistically balanced nutrients to sustain their memory, to be attentive in class, to heal, but also they need a first line immune defense. Why? Because their exposure in class, as we all know, is quite high. There's anywhere from 20, 40, 50 students all gathering every day in class. And then they mix classes, and now you're mixing your students. The point being is that the body, the immune system has exposure, and it needs support. And so the basis of IntraKid was to take carbon like Intramax
Yeah.
and bond it to over 200 nutrients and then create the blend so that the child will have it in his bloodstream or her bloodstream in under
Yeah.
18 seconds and bring a blend of nutrients in to support them physically, mentally, emotionally,
Yeah.
in every other capacity that we could think of in school as they're growing, from bones to the brain. We want to create coherent brains and coherent hearts. And so this supplementation has everything that the child needs nutritionally every single day to reach every, hopefully, and achieve every goal that they set for themselves, whether they're a gymnast after
Yeah.
class, whether they're hitting the volleyball court or the basketball, baseball court after school. They need sustained energy, Fab. They need to sustain it from early in the morning, sometimes 7:30 or 8, all the way through 2:30, 3 o'clock. And then what do? They run over to either a friend's house, or they're in sports, or they're in the debate class, but their brains and their bodies are literally tired. This helps sustain energy throughout the entire day. The key, though, to understanding is something that is just as important, which we haven't really talked about, but is fruitful to know across all of Drucker Labs products, is that we literally do this without one synthetic chemical nutrient, meaning everything is bonded to carbon. Everything is
Wow.
made up of the same living material that we're made up of. And number two, we do it without any chemical preservatives, Fab. And I don't know of anybody else around that can make such a claim that we are doing it in a pH balanced environment, meaning helping the body to balance itself and its pH, all the while not making sure we do not deliver it um, on the backbone of any kind of synthetic um, preservation. And most of that would be things like potassium sorbate and sodium benzoate. These are very common synthetic, very powerfully unhealthy synthetic chemicals that are required by law. The Food and Drug Administration requires them, Fab, in the United States. We have spent 7 years, Fab, developing a highly proprietary, preservative, chemical-free process called intra-fresh technology. So what would be the point of delivering, hopefully, a very balanced, synergistic nutrient supplement into the bloodstream in under 18 seconds, and then turn around and have amounts of synthetic chemicals like potassium sorbate and sodium benzoate as preservative? That would sort of defeat the purpose.
Well, and it's interesting because you and I have had those discussions before. And what I love about it is your integrity behind it. You set out to go through this process. I've seen the gruesome pain, growing pains that you've had from the early beginnings. I've seen how the company has expanded. I've seen going from just a handful of doctors to thousands of doctors across the nations, thousands of individuals that are ordering and benefiting from that. I've always been very grateful to you because I feel like one of my base foundational things is the fact that I've been a customer of yours for over 20 years. And it's because the product is so good and you can feel it. And visiting your facility, it is so beautiful to see how you follow all the guidelines and go above and beyond most companies that I see in nutrition because of that integrity. You take a lot of pride in everything that you do. And I know that you look at these products as an extension of you. And you have probably one of the best reputations in the healthcare industry because of that integrity. I'm going to ask you one final question because I
Absolutely.
know that this is far more than just a product and just a company for you. Tell me a little bit about your mission and what is it that you're trying to accomplish through these products for individuals out there that may be listening right now. And if you're listening right now, I want you to know that if you go to the chat, I went ahead and put a link where I can tell you, because I've never seen this before, but I was talking to one of Dr. Drucker's individuals that manages Jeffrey, and he said, you know what, for your group, we're going to do something we've never done before, and that is a 50% off any subscription that you want. And I put here where you actually can have the opportunity to benefit from that. Because if you have not experienced this product, or even if you have and you want to stock up, especially for the holidays and for next year, this is the opportunity for you to do it. So, Richard, tell me about this mission, because when I hear you speak about your deep mission as a company, as an individual, that to me is what inspires me more than anything else.
Wow. Thank you so much for even mentioning that, or even bringing that up in today's chat. And the the mission behind all of this is really that for me. It starts with three words. The first one is people, the second one is planet, and the third one is purpose. So it's people, planet, purpose. And our mission is that we want to do a couple of things. Number one, we would like to introduce carbon bond technology, which I do. I don't know if anybody will be able to see it, but here's the book. It's called Carbon Cure. Um, but
You
the
can get it
point
from
is,
the website too, by the way. When you click on the website, you have the access to it there too. It's an incredible read, I promise you. I read it cover to cover, and he knows that.
we try in the book to explain what I'm trying to explain here, which is what attributes within carbon bond technology will help us to excel in our everyday life, and at the same time prophylactically prevent disease. In addition to that, we want to embrace the fact that, yes, if we could only wait, another 3,000 years, Fab, to let Mother Nature do her own thing, Mother Nature naturally would restore the soils that our foods are grown in, and it would replenish the organic materials or organic complexes that are in the soils over a long period of time. Anyway, in that process, as it should be, the farmer would then turn around and replant their crop, and the nutrients that were in the soil would then be transported directly into our foods that we eat. But unfortunately, Fab, that stopped before the 1930s, or in and around the 1930s. So by the time you hit 1940s and 1950s, the food supply was really, unfortunately, technically very hollow. So the nutrients that should be transferred from the soils, unfortunately, the soils were over farmed. So they were unfortunately depleted. And as they became depleted, so did our food supply. And what happens as a result of that is, well, we have seen over all the years, you and I both know, we have seen, although medical science has done an incredibly amazing thing in a sense, allopathic medicine has introduced new surgeries and new drugs and all these different things. But what we've seen is, although all of that has happened, disease has manifested at a greater rate than what science, I guess you call allopathic science, can cure. So, what does that all mean? That means that we need another way to accomplish and create health for ourselves and for future generations. And how do we do that? I mean, that's really the core question. How do we do it? And I have spent the last 30 years um, evaluating, researching, and developing a technology. And this technology called carbon bond technology has the ability to now do a couple of things. One, we can utilize the technology to mimic the foods that we used to be able to get before the 1930s. So when we at one time had nutritiously enriched foods from the ground, the idea is that those foods were providing critical organic minerals and complexes, and our bodies could receive nutrition at a very high rate because the body can assimilate it because it was all bonded to carbon. What we've been introduced to since then is all this synthetic chemical nutrition, which is the exact opposite, which is made in a lab, which is synthesized, which has absolutely it's like a fake leather shoe, meaning the body doesn't know what to do with it because it's not real leather, it's not a real nutrient. So the body, unfortunately, hasn't been able to absorb it. And so the body has suffered. We as a society, we as a world, we as a community have suffered immensely because of our exposure to all the synthetics, whether it's nutrients, whether it's toxins from the air. We are constantly being exposed to plastics and synthetics, and our bodies don't really know what to do with it. And we weren't designed to process synthetic chemical nutrition or plastics. So they accumulate, whether it's paints or plastics, etc. And not to mention a whole host of herbicides and pesticides. But I think ultimately the people, planet, purpose concept says, hey, we now can introduce back into the bloodstream in under 18 seconds critical organically bound nutrients that we would have and could have and should have received had we received it in our food supply. But unfortunately, the food supply, as we both know, is hollow. So, what that means to us now is that CBT can deliver nutrients into our bloodstream exactly the way we would have gotten had we eaten in our food supply. But number two, it will also go after and release us and release our bodies and our cells of all the things that have accumulated over a period of time. What does that really mean to us ultimately is that our dedication to people, planet, purpose leads us down the road so that we can now take a spin-off fab of carbon bond technology and we can literally regenerate the soil back to where the soil was before the 1930s with this technology, with a spin-off of carbon bond technology. And what does that mean? Brother, that means that instead of waiting another 3,000, 4,000, or
We can start
5,000,
being healthy today.
right, we can literally start
Yeah.
replenishing our crops. Farmers can start restoring and regenerating the soil. And all the while we're doing that, our foods will then become once again, organically complex nutrients will now come back into the food supply, back into the into our bodies where
Yeah,
we should have
where
been
the
getting
food
it
had
all.
actually nutrients instead of what we have
Yes.
now, which is, and I know that I see, and I even wrote a chapter in my new book on regenerative farming, but this takes that whole concept so much faster than what they're currently doing. But I'm glad to see so many of the farmers have begun to recognize that we needed to regenerate the soil and we need to start plenishing them again with the proper nutrients. Uh, I have a question, and somebody
Of
was
course.
asking
Yeah.
if. Is it better to take Intramin before you take Intramix? How would you suggest is the most ideal component? Because I usually take the Intramix and then take the Intramin afterwards as a chaser. But what would you say are the best absorptions of taking the products?
Absolutely. The easiest thing to do is to remember that they really go very, very, very well together. They're designed to be taken together. Intramin
Okay.
are your organically bound minerals. Intramax are your organically bound nutrients. The
Yeah.
more Intramin you take with Intramax, the faster you drive Intramax into the bloodstream. So the
Perfect.
more energy you have. One thing I would also tell people is if you are on any kind of prescription medication, and you're taking that at making this up, of course, at 8 o'clock in the morning, by 9:30 or 10, you can certainly now take your Intramin and Intramax together, but you want to take them together. The ultimate is the threesome. It would
Yeah.
be the combination of Intramin, Intramax, and Intramune. And what I did was I traveled the world and I literally found nutrients that most people have never even heard of. These are all immune supporting nutrients. And I have literally brought them in from all over the world. And then what I did, Fab, was I carbon bonded them. And after I carbon bonded them, I decided that they would work and create them to work synergistically with Intramax. So whatever is in intra immune It will help prevent colds and flus and COVID and all kinds of exposures that we have bacterially and virally and otherwise. But it's designed to work synergistically with Intramax and Intramin. So it's the ultimate trifecta. It's the ultimate ability for your body to have a first line defense, both from phytonutrient perspective, meaning coming from Intramax, from the mineral and delivery system perspective, coming from Intramin, and then you also have the intraimmune perspective to help the body sustain itself through cold and flu season, or for that matter, if you've already got a cold and a flu, this will help your body kick it right out, help the glutathione levels. It is literally a one in a lifetime type supplement. There's nothing on the market anywhere that we know of in the world like Intraimmune. It is a very unique, highly efficacious, immune modulating nutritional supplement that works synergistically with Intramin and Intramax.
Well, one of the biggest complaints that I get from people is the fact that they're taking 20, 30 different things. Um,
Heard.
and imagine taking over 400. And you just take a shot and you have over 400, and then you take another one and you have over 200, and you take another one and you have over 200. And I'm saying to myself, how in the world? And that's one of the things that I love about the opportunity of that becoming an issue, because if we have the ability to feed our bodies in the easiest way possible, then people have the ability to counteract all of these deficiencies that they get from their food, the emotional distresses that we deal with every single day, the toxic environments within our homes, within our work, and also within our environment and our air.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so to me, think about as you go into this link and you get this incredible benefit of 50% off your subscription, order all three, experience it for yourself. All I can tell you is I've been doing this for so long, and Richard knows that I'm a big fan. I've always been a big fan of his and his team uh, because this is a technology that I've never seen anything this robust in a very simple way to take all of this without having to take so many pills. So I'm going to put the link right here. Go to the chat right now and make sure that you take advantage of that. Place your first subscription order because I know that you can start benefit. And Richard, I just want to say, first of all, thank you for your leadership in the healthcare field. You have been a leader for over 30 years that I've known you, and you continue to be a leader to many of the practitioners out there. And those of you that are listening, I hope that this was valuable. If you like to share it with other people, we're going to go ahead and send you the recording. So that way, share it with as many people as you can, because there's a lot of people out there struggling that maybe did not get the invitation or potentially were not able to make it. And you want to be able to share with them if you felt that there was a lot of value here, which I know it was, and also benefit from this link. We're going to leave the link on for just a few days so you guys can benefit. So please take advantage of it. Order today if you can. I know you will thank me for it. I'm a customer over 20 years, he can tell you. I love this product and my family loves this product. So I know that you will love it too. So thank you, Richard. God bless you and happy
Thanks, bro.
holidays. Merry Christmas, everybody. And I look forward to hopefully seeing you soon and bringing you more value through these master classes. See you soon.